Hello, hello. Good afternoon, leaders. Welcome, welcome. Wherever you're joining from, you are in the right place if you are looking for how to make a bad boss irrelevant. If you're looking for some sort of cooking class or fashion tips, this is not the right place. But if you're looking for leadership, how to be more effective no matter what's going on around you, how to pay attention to the quality of your decisions, and as a result, your actions and your outcomes, then you're in the right place. So I know several of you are already on. Let me see if I can get back to the right place here. So a couple of things. Again, welcome everyone. My name is Bribiesca-Hedin. I'm the CEO of Bridgewell Professional Services. And I'm often having conversations relating to how to be a more effective and intentional leader, how to get beyond the nonsense of kind of feeling reactivated or impacted by other people and their nonsense in such a way that it keeps us from showing up powerfully and intentionally and actually creating the results we want, right? I mean, that sounds pretty good any way you look at it. And I really wanted to have this conversation in particular about how to make a bad boss irrelevant, because I found that no matter what level, literally what level my clients are at in my leadership groups or one-on-one coaching, it's almost like we all have a bad boss story. Now, oftentimes the bad boss story can kind of serve to, prompt bigger things, better things, have us move on. But before we get there, there's often, unfortunately, this lengthy period of time where that experience feels more like an anchor. Does that make sense, you guys? So, before we actually get started, I know I'm letting people roll in. A couple of housekeeping things. So first, it's that I can only see your comments if you're logged into YouTube or LinkedIn. I can only see them live. Now that means you can be watching it someplace else, but I can't see your comments. So if I'm not replying to you, it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's simply that I can't access comments on, let's say, Twitter or on Facebook, or if this is on Instagram, any place you're watching it other than YouTube and LinkedIn, I cannot see your comments. So if you want to engage live in real time, I encourage you to go on over to YouTube, sign into LinkedIn. Now, for most sessions, I don't need to give you this caveat. And by the way, Bilu, I'm pretty sure you can be logged on to both at the same time, so long as whatever technology you're using doesn't keep you from being able to do that. Excuse me. I just a quick excuse me, you guys. I've been kind of I've been traveling a lot, and then arguing with a cough, which if if you argue with a cough, you almost never win. So excuse me if I have to take a break a couple of times to sip something. But the caveat I want to give you guys, okay, especially if you're joining me on LinkedIn, is that I always want you to feel as though you can express yourself the way you need to express yourself, right? That's important. And that you, of course, be responsible for how you're showing up and how you're expressing yourself. And, with that in mind, I want you to consider that the comments you share might actually kind of be out there on the internet in perpetuity. Okay, so with that in mind, just consider how you want to phrase what there is to phrase, the questions that you have to ask, the comments you have to share, and how they will be available for others to read, and maybe not even necessarily take them in context in the future. And because of the nature of this particular conversation, I wanted to be intentional about kind of giving that quick heads up. Okay, folks. So are you ready? Who's ready? Who's ready? And here's the thing, this conversation, even though I titled it How to Make a Bad Boss Irrelevant, it's about so much more than that. It's about being willing and able to focus on what you want to focus on, as opposed to having your brilliance, your attention, your intention, your goals, your satisfaction, your attitude be dictated by something or someone outside of you, right? That's what that's about. So whether we're talking about a bad boss, a challenging relationship, being in a situation that you don't want to find yourself in, stay tuned in, because I promise you that what we talk about is going to impact whatever that challenge is for you. So you can just fill in bad boss with anything else that you want to make you relevant. Okay. And I see you guys are here. I see you are ready to go. You guys are so awesome. I love this. So thank you, Tony, for giving me permission to take breaks as I need to. Hopefully the coughing will subside as I get going. And LinkedIn user, yes, let's get it. That's what I'm talking about. And we're ready. So we're going to go. Michael, awesome. I'm glad you like the topic. Let's see. And I love this. Sharonda, I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling you're not the only one who right this moment thinks this is exactly the conversation I need to be hearing. So let's do it. Let's do it. Now, I know that obviously because of the title of the session, many of you are here because there might be kind of some baggage that's still following you along, even after you've left the bad boss behind. It might even be that you're in a great situation now, but you are feeling the impact, the remnants, or sometimes even the bitterness and resentment of that experience you had, right? Like it should not have happened. It's not okay that that happened, right? Is that fair? And sometimes we inadvertently allow that to be what stays front and center. So I want to give you some immediate tools and strategies to reconnect with what you actually want front and center, and to be able to immediately set aside whatever that nonsense is, right? That was going on with the bad boss or the uninspired boss or the challenging client or the nightmare board or however it is that you want to characterize it in your head. Now, while I'm focusing on where you as the leader can make different decisions and better decisions and take responsibility, please do not take that to mean that I don't recognize the trauma, right? Or, somebody said, there's sometimes a sense of almost PTSD that can go along with being in a toxic experience, in particular for an extended period of time. Because what happens when we're there is that we actually start to internalize some of the negativity and start to believe that potentially we are the problem, right? And so I want it to be really clear. I 100% believe that there are awful bosses. In fact, I've experienced it, and I've also experienced kind of like that freedom and intentionality of being on the other side, and in looking back at that as a memory of, I'm so glad I'm not there anymore, that we're not doing that. If I were there again, the experience would be so different because I'm a different person. All of those different ways of looking back and seeing it as just part of that rich tapestry that brought me to where I am today, as opposed to continuing to feel victimized by it after I'm not there anymore, right? Because some of these things, it's like, it's not okay. And it's okay to think it's not okay. You're supposed to think it's not okay. You're not supposed to be desensitized to people, being disrespectful, diminishing our value, not being willing to see us or allow us to contribute, making us continue to prove ourselves as though somehow the value we bring is only momentary, right? Does that resonate, you guys? we shouldn't want any of those things. We don't want to normalize those. And in fact, the reason we don't want to normalize them is because we want those to inform who we are as leaders, right? Because what not to do is it often becomes clearer faster than what to do. Yes? What not to do is often a really good lesson. So I'm gonna get going. Now I know, you might be in a situation, either past or present, when you're thinking, I need to get rid of my bad boss. I think they are the source of my consternation, of my dissatisfaction, of physical and very real emotional stress. You might be, for example, resorting to, you're checking your blood pressure because your health is being impacted and you're seeing it spike. In fact, I remember being on text strings with coworkers years ago where we would send each other our blood pressure readings because we never had high blood pressure before we were in the midst, and we were part of a leadership team before we were in the midst of this, awful leadership experience. So again, that might sound familiar with all of you. And the most common thought is, I just need to get rid of my bad boss, right? I need to change this situation. I need to change this situation. It is impacting me. And for others, you might have already left that bad boss. You're no longer in that situation, right? But it feels like you went from one bad boss to another. You literally, it might feel to you in your soul as though you seem incapable of making a decision as it relates to employers or potential bosses that work in your favor. Like, it feels like you keep somehow winning the opposite of the lottery when it comes to a boss or a working situation. Now, that's not entirely uncommon or unusual, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But really what I want you to understand, at this point, is that leaving does not necessarily solve the problem. Now, it is not to suggest that you are the problem, but it is to affirm that you are the solution. Can you guys hear that? It's not that you are the problem. It's kind of like racism existing in the United States and maybe everywhere on earth. Racism exists. Racism is a problem, and we should all be offended by it. We should all never be desensitized to it. And ideally, we get to a place where we can see what's happening and decide how we're going to let that continue to impact us beyond the moment, right? So somebody does something, either microaggression or macroaggression. It feels motivated by either your race, your age, your ability, your culture, your background, your education, whatever the case is. Of course, we're human beings. It's going to feel off-putting. It's going to feel upsetting. And then we get to decide, right? They are clearly the problem, a problem, but we are going to be part of the solution. So how can we be part of that solution? Because we can walk around festering about the fact that people behave badly. And that is true. Yes, people can behave badly. People can be cruel. Often they are people who are dealing with their own demons and, lashing out at anyone around to appease theirs, right? Their own demons. So I'm going in a slightly different direction than I was going with this, but I want to be present to just some recent and kind of ongoing tragic news that occurs to me. You all might not agree with me, but that occurs to me as though it has a racial element. And that if in this country we were willing to engage with the fact that everyone is swimming in the same water that has a certain level of, if you want to think about it, particles or filth in it, and so we're impacted by it, that then we'd be willing to get past the conversation of, are we racist? And get to the conversation of what do we do about, right, the socialization we've had that causes us to have these ideas, to shoot somebody, to shoot a young boy because he knocks on our door, mistakenly going to the wrong address. So I'm going to bring the conversation back to this, but I want you to see how important it is to be cause in the matter and the source of the solution, because the problem is screwed up, right? I'm not going to mince words about that. And the solution is not, right, to hate the folks and focus and obsess on the folks having the problem in this case, right? In particular, when we're talking about a bad boss. So I'm going to bring it back, and hopefully this will get very clear as we go. But I wanted to take a moment and hopefully if you're listening and there is some grieving going on where you are as a result of what's real, as a result of what's happening and how it might be impacting you and your life or your experience, I want you to see how you can pull this to you, right? Because while maybe you can't stop or change that particular problem, you can be part of a solution. So we're going to focus on that now. Okay, let's go. Let's keep going. So leaving doesn't necessarily solve the problem, because what we do is, unfortunately, we sometimes have a way of making our bad bosses the headline in everything going on in our experience. That toxic experience, like, we want to know that it was real. We want to know that we should be indignant, because you should be indignant. But there's that we should be indignant, and then what? And then what are we going to do? Yes? When you look back at some of the experiences that you've had with a toxic work experience, not being seen, not being acknowledged or accepted or valued, some more subtle, some more blatant. Again, we can be upset and should be upset at all of those. And the intention with this conversation is that then you're able to look back and be like, that's what happened. And this is what I want to have be happening now. So I sent an email to the folks on my list today, on my email list. If you're on my email list, you might have gotten it. You guys know one of the things I really like talking about is the importance of the quality of your decisions. But something that really started to occur to me is the importance of the quality of your problems. Because see, a life, when you look around at people who are up to big things, the quality and the value of their problems, it's literally a higher and different quality. And this occurred to me as a result of the experience I see in the leaders in my leadership group. So you guys know I have this intentional leadership program, that 3-month leadership group that I host. And what they find time and again is that they will address the problem, the challenge, the situation that brought them to have a conversation with me and be like, I feel stuck. I don't know how to move forward with this. I don't know how to address this piece. Clearly, I'm the solution, right? And I need to figure that out. So they come with that in mind. And then what happens is that they actually are successful at getting to the other side of the problem. The example I shared in a newsletter is a client who is, she was with an employer, I called them an uninspired boss, who really was not willing to catch her winning. They wanted to minimize and limit the type of work that she was being given an opportunity to do. And here's the thing, this person was already ready, whether she knew it or not, to do her boss's job and potentially her boss's job. But the point being that most of her attention and focus was going to survival. Like, how do I just survive the fact that I want to scream, that I want to throw something out the window, that I want to lose all my composure and yell at this person and tell them how awful they are being and ask them, why they are choosing to show up in this way. Right? And that's a very normal response. However, she'd been in that same level of frustration for months. She'd been underutilized for months. This is a woman who is brilliant. And she was in this environment where she was not being allowed to thrive or being given the opportunity to thrive. And on the contrary, she would continue to put herself out there to want to contribute at a higher level. And it was kind of like swatted down. So at some point, we need to recognize that the solution is not to continue to focus on that part of the problem, right? But rather to focus on the solution that we want to create. And we're going to go through specific questions I want you to ask yourself to do just that. So you guys, I'm going to take a breath for a second. Just drop me a quick note in this chat. Is this resonating so far? Is this resonating so far? I know we're really still just kind of steeped in defining the problem, but is this resonating? I want to hear with you guys on whether this is landing. And if it's not, I want to make sure that I catch that. I created enough time in this session so that we have plenty of time for questions and any bold soul who wants to raise their hand to be coached. So let me know if this is resonating. Because again, when we get to focus on the solution, right? When we get to focus on the solution, when we get to focus on what it is that we want, when we get to focus on, yeah, this is wrong, and what should it look like, our brilliance gets directed to something that really, really matters. Again, the quality of the problem we've chosen to take on, it is literally unrecognizable. It is transformed. It goes from an experience of that almost feels whiny, like my boss sucks. Sorry, you guys, keeping it real, right? My boss won't cut me a break. I'm not giving an opportunity to contribute the way I want to contribute. I've been passed over for this promotion. Like, what are they waiting for to see me? Going from that place where, again, it can feel very whiny. It's a very real problem, but it can feel very whiny and almost like an annoyance, to a place of demoting the impact of that original problem, demoting the impact of the bad boss. So they're no longer that headliner and everything going on in the life and career of Asya, to just kind of, they're somewhere in there, right? They're somewhere in there in the classified ads at the bottom of the part of the newspaper nobody reads. It's still in there. It's just not the part that we focus on. Right? We get to focus now on the solution we actually want to create. We get to focus on what we were there for to begin with, right? When you think about being in a negative work experience, like you showed up, at least I don't know, I'm going to own this. Like I would show up and I'm like enthusiastic. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so great. Right? It's fantastic. Like I cannot wait to get into it, and like all the people I'm going to meet and the neat work I'm going to do, and I'm going to bring my brilliance to it. And, I'm pretty industrious, so I like to figure things out. And then, right, maybe it's just however you want to think about it, ding after ding after ding, realizing or having the experience that the roadblock to all of that is either this kind of toxic environment, toxic norms, an uninspired bad boss, ways of working that don't actually make sense, right? And little by little, those all seem to chip away at all of that enthusiasm. And then before you know it, we're spending all of our lunch hours, and our leadership team's text stream is dedicated to talking about what that last awful thing is the bad boss did. Did you see when they said so and so? So what we want to do is demote them. The other way I like to put this is a lot of us have in the feature film or the novel that is our professional life, we inadvertently cast the bad boss or that bad experience or bad board member or bad relationship as the star of the story. Can you imagine? Like we inadvertently do that. So what I want you to do is demote them from star, move yourself up to the star of the story, and throw them in background. You guys with me? We want to demote them from star to background, from headlines to not even classifieds, but the free classifieds, right? The ones nobody looks at. So I hope that's really sinking in and that you guys can see the implications of what we're starting to talk about. And yes, Stephanie, demote the impact of your boss. Yes. Because again, it's not even that you're wrong being upset by it. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about what serves you, what serves the contribution you want to make, the impact you want to have, the way you want to lead your team, right? How you want to, even if you do plan to leave in 3 months, how you want to leave them better than you found them. And when we have our head literally, feeling like it's obscured by the negativity and somebody else's way of showing up and being unwilling to take responsibility for how they're showing up, we lose all that impact we could have had. We lose all that impact we could have had. That is not okay. And the worst part, potentially, right? I always think almost like the best possible outcome of staying with a bad boss for an extended period of time, right? When you're continuing to have the blood pressure moments and the Sunday night blues and all the things, is unfortunately getting desensitized to the point that you become a bad boss yourself. And when I consider that most people would rather have a new boss than a raise, y'all, it's apparent to me we are taking that baggage with us. We are taking that baggage with us. That is not, I'll bet, what any of us set out to do. What any of us set out to do. Okay, then. And Angela, I wish I'd had the session of my last tour. I was feeling like I was crazy. Yes, you feel like it's just you, because here's the thing. On the outside, everyone, right, unless you have a kind of trusting team, like that leadership team I mentioned, where we're willing to tell each other, hey, this is where I'm struggling. You think it's just you, because everybody else is walking around smiling. Hey, how's it going? Oh, good. How's it going? How's your weekend? Oh, great. No one's talking about the struggle, the blood pressure, the anxiety, the depression, the self-doubt, the soul-crushing experience of having to engage every day while feeling somewhat victimized. And yes, Joy, absolutely. We get to be responsible for what we feed our minds. right? And so we need to be really careful about when all we're feeding our minds has something to do with the last thing the bad boss did. So I'm going to continue. And I'm starting to take in all of your comments, you guys. Thank you so much for engaging. This is fantastic. And yes, proper problem definition, right? Proper problem definition. Like, what problem is it that you actually want to solve for? And I'm going to give you some very specific questions to ask yourself. Very simple. I'm only giving you 3 questions, so don't be afraid. Because we need to get good. We need to get really good at going after higher quality problems. The kind of problems that make our effort and our brilliance, that are worthy of our effort and our brilliance. You guys with that? Problems about how we're going to leave a legacy for our family. Problems like how we're going to up-level our team in spite of all of the chaos going on, right? Problems like how are we going to elevate the strategic planning skill of our board, right? Those are problems worthy of your brilliance. And that's what we're trying to do. Those are problems worthy of your brilliance. Yes. And the other thing is, you guys, we need to no longer tolerate having the same complaints and the same problems. What those do is they keep us stuck in an abyss of low quality thinking and low quality decision making, because all we're doing in that space is continuously reacting to the nonsense triggered by that low quality problem, instead of redirecting all that brilliance to what you could be doing, to what actually matters. Yes, to what actually matters, what actually makes a difference. Okay, so let's move on. So unfortunately, they didn't build. So I'm going to invite you to only look at one question at a time. I'm going to invite you to look at only the first question right now. If you had a good boss instead of a bad boss, what would your career look like? What would be different about your experience today? That is the question that I want you to answer. So I'm actually going to remove that, because you guys are going to go to the other questions and you're not going to want to sit with that question. So let me make sure that, actually, if we can get that added to the comments in the stream, that would be helpful. I'm going to go ahead and also add it here as a banner. So give me just a moment. It's going to take me just a second. I want you to be specific. If you had a good boss instead of a bad boss, how would your career and experience be different? How would your results be different? So go ahead and answer that reflection question. You had a good boss instead of a bad boss. How would your career and experience be different? How would your results be different? And be as specific as you can. Now, please feel free to share these in the chat, or just write them in your journal. But I want you to actually spend time with that. Okay, I'd be in the running to be the next commissioner of education in the state of Colorado. Got it. And you can go as many jobs back as you want. You can go as many jobs back as you want, whichever one you want, whichever one you think is having the biggest impact on you, right? Because what we want to do is make them irrelevant. So whatever you think is having the biggest impact on you. You'd have more learning and growth opportunities. Okay. More learning and growth opportunities. Again, make sure you're writing these down for yourself as well. You'd be happier, much happier. I hear that. I hear that, Christy. So keep on writing those down. Take like another 30 seconds. Okay. Lorna, I would have spent a lot more time making a positive impact versus worrying about what they thought about me and just trying to survive. Yes. And I get this. Let me go back to, oops, I just missed one. There are a lot. Thank you guys so much for sharing this. I don't like thinking about this, to be honest, because I think I could be a lot farther along if I didn't have someone crushing my enthusiasm for 2 years. Yes. Yeah. This is probably resonating for a lot of you. And I hope that you're getting really clear that this is a nearly universal experience. A nearly universal experience. Let's see. Evan, for me, it'd be role clarity and direction. Get to utilize my strengths. Further growth and development, as opposed to just the strain of the day-to-day minutia. Are you guys feeling that? Are you guys feeling that? I know I am. It'd be different because I'd be very impactful and willing to go higher in my career. Here we go. Easily 3 levels higher in my career and making more money. Okay, I might be a global payroll specialist by now if I had the learning and growth opportunities. Yep. Yeah. More active. Are we? You'd have more active membership. Yes. Membership. Mentorship. You all knew what I meant. More active mentorship. I would have professionally moved faster, but actually the bad boss made me stronger. Thank you. Is it, I want to say it correctly. I love the spelling of your name. Is it Lisa? You'll have to tell me after or send me a note on LinkedIn so I know how to pronounce it. But I'm like fascinated by the spelling of your name. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I would have enjoyed my work more in my personal life. So much. So much, so much, so much. Okay, we're going to go on. We're going to keep on going on. So thank you guys for answering those questions, for being willing to reflect, to share with other people here. This is, hopefully really helpful to each of you at a minimum, right? Recognizing that you're not alone. So let's see the next question. So I want you to look at everything that you put on your list. Okay. I want you to look at everything you put on your list. Now, this might grate against some of you, but I'm going to ask you to stick with me anyway, right? You just know I'm always on your side, 100% in your corner. If you took responsibility for each of those results, what are some things you'd be doing differently now? If you took responsibility for each of those results, what are some things you'd be doing differently now? Let me go ahead and make a banner for that right now. There you go. If you took responsibility for each of those results, what would you be doing differently now? In other words, another way to think about it, because we were talking about this in my leadership group. So it's a 12-week, right? We went for 12 weeks plus the kickoff weekend, and we were on week 11 last night. And we were talking about same thing I was talking about in my own business planning retreat that I was just at in Louisville, which is if you were going to make the outcome or the goal certain, absolutely certain, what would you be doing differently? If you were going to make that outcome or that goal certain, what would you be doing differently now? And it's such a good conversation around goal certainty. And the way I like to think about this is that like if I'm trying to, I don't know, take my family on a cross-country trip, and the road I wanted to take, one of the roads I wanted to take was blocked. It was just shut down. And it's a road we were really looking forward to going down, as part of our trip. Does that mean I would cancel the trip? Is that trip still worth taking? Because if it is, you better bet your last dollar I would have figured out a different way to get there. So I can't change the fact that the road is closed, but I am 100% responsible about whether I choose to turn the car around and go back home or find a detour. Yes? Let me go back to your comments. Okay. If you were taking responsibility, Baloo, you'd be in a career-specific training that identifies and uses your strengths. Excellent. What else, you guys? Keep them coming. If you took responsibility for each of those results, what would you be doing differently right now? Ooh, Violeta, Dr. Violeta. I would not shut down and avoided the conflict. I would have established the boundary of not allowing anyone to scream at me. Absolutely. Worked on how to stand up for me. Realized that his emotions were not my problem. Oh, you just touched on like my favorite thing to say. I say this all the time, and I know my groups, when I say it, they're like, oh yeah, it's not about you. Other people behaving badly. We like to think that it's all about us. That nonsense is not about you. And you know how you can prove 100% that it's not about you? You can be in a room full of people, utter the exact same words. Some people will be inspired, some will be bored, and some will be offended. That is how you know it's not about you. But you all don't want to believe me when I say that. So you want to keep thinking that if you do just the right thing, if you people please just the right way, someone else is going to behave better. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't take responsibility for who you are and how you show up. Of course, I hope that goes without saying. What it does mean is that you don't take their response as an indicator or reflection of your quality and capability, right? This is like the famous concert violinist. Yeah, you guys have probably seen the meme or the little video who he was going to be playing at some important hall the next day, and the tickets were, a couple $100 a ticket to watch him play. But the night before, just for kicks, he went to go hang out at a Subway in Busk. He just opened his case, started playing. Most people just ignored him and were like, what is all this noise? Some people threw a couple bucks in there. And, they went on their way. But see, his quality, what he knew to be true about him, had nothing to do with whether people were ignoring him as they went by, or whether they were throwing a couple bucks in, or whether they were paying $200 a seat, right? Sometimes you're in an environment where people aren't trying to catch you winning. They aren't willing or able to see your value. Does that mean you have no value? Or does that mean they're just not good at seeing it? You guys with me? Okay, let's keep going. What else you would have done differently? You'd be doing differently right now? Standing up for myself and speaking up as well. Okay, good. And yes, Savannah, that's what I'm talking about. We can't control how other people behave. We can only control the boundaries we set and how we respond. I don't like react, but how we respond, right? Because that's entirely in our control. Let's see what you'd be doing differently if you were willing to take responsibility for the result you said was impacted by having a bad boss. You'd be taking more time for your personal growth instead of covering boss's tasks. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. One of my challenges is I don't know what the focus of my trip is. Where am I going? Dude, you need to answer that question because listen to me, you guys. The only thing more important than knowing where you fit in your organization's strategic plan is knowing where they fit into yours. Get that cleaned up. Get that cleaned up. Shameless plug, definitely join my program because one of the outcomes of the program is you walk away with a clear and intentional strategic plan for your career that's motivated by you as a powerful leader, not you as a reaction to, I'll show them, or whatever other nonsense it is that we carry with us, right? That has us make poor decisions and try to prove ourselves instead of expand ourselves. Let's see, what else? What else? I love that. More of you guys standing up for yourselves. And here's a question. Let's see how much time we have. How do you engage in conflict and at the same time maintain your values and boundaries? Okay. Here's what I want to say about boundaries, just very briefly, okay? Because I definitely want to keep going because we're almost to the third question. But a boundary is something you set for yourself. It's for your own well-being. And it's not really relevant if other people agree or disagree, or even if you have told them. So for example, if I go to a friend's house for a gathering and someone takes out drugs, starts doing, illegal drugs, I'm not going to actually go out there and tell them, you've just bumped against one of my boundaries. I'm just going to go ahead and pack up and say, thanks for having me, and I'm going to go. You know why that is? Because the boundary is for me. It's not to control them. Do you understand the distinction? Sometimes people want to use boundaries, quote unquote, as a way to control other people. But a boundary is actually your commitment to how you're going to respond to other people's choices. And of course, if it's someone close to you, you can let them know, like, hey, I know last time I was waiting for you 30 minutes, for us to go to this event together. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to wait for 10 minutes. If you're not there, I'm going to go ahead and go. I love you. And we'll talk about it afterwards. Right? It's that straightforward because it's not a way of punishing them. It's a way of making sure you are well and empowered and have what you need. So I hope that distinction is helpful for whoever has questions about boundaries. But standing up to the person. Here's the thing. I can't coach you on standing up to the person unless I know where that role fits in the strategic plan for your career, because the responses are going to be different. Right? If that role is truly a meaningful component in your career strategic plan, not a reaction or automatic default to, but I'm afraid to go interview for another job. And what if I can, and then I'm too young, or I'm too old, or I'm inexperienced, or I'm doing this and that, and I'm not doing that. But really, if that role truly in your soul of souls, right, you're being a real and intentional leader, you're clear that that role is an important element in the strategic plan for your career, then we would need to have some real discussions about what is it that's actually triggering the upset. Because for one, right, we need to like neutralize that. That's one. And then we need to go on with, okay, now what else needs to happen in that strategic plan? So I want to give you that because I think a lot of people are asking the same question. If you are in a, I'm just trying to pay the bills job, aren't you going to approach that challenge differently than, hey, this role is actually incredibly instrumental to what I'm trying to do next? Right? The nature of that conversation is going to be very different. Okay, let me go on to the third question and bring this back up. Oh, okay, back. Let's go back. Okay, now I'll go back to your questions. I know there's a lot still there, but if you demoted the bad boss from headline to that free classified ad, what would you be doing for your career right now? I want you to envision if your bad boss was no longer part of your set of concerns. If your bad boss was no longer part of your set of concerns, what would you be doing differently? Literally today, like when you get off this webinar, when you close the window, what would you be doing differently if they were no longer a headline in the story of your professional life? So give yourselves just a moment to ponder that. Oops, I think I lost the other comments. Oh, that's because I clicked on the wrong thing. I gotta love how it's almost always user error. You notice that? I'm like, who is this user and why do they keep messing with my stuff? But it's me. That is like a great analogy for all that we talk about. Okay, let's see. Excelling in the space I'm passionate about. Okay, removing the roadblocks. I want you guys to notice that there's something I refer to as outsourcing your power. When in your brain, you are saying a sentence that sounds something like, if only I had a better boss, then that would happen. If only I didn't have such a long commute to work, then this would happen. My life would be so much better if fill in the blank. My career would be so much better if fill in the blank. I want you to catch yourself doing that. Because every time that you have an if then that you've identified, each of those is an example of you outsourcing your power and your effectiveness to something out there that you don't control. Right? If only the weather was better. If only there wasn't so much traffic. Actually, even if only the economy was better. If only my boss was better. Should we want all those things to be better? Of course. Should the fact that they're not better be what's defining whether you're effective, whether you get to grow, whether you get to have the kind of career and outcome you want? No, of course not. And that is how you make a bad boss irrelevant. That is how you make a bad boss irrelevant. Choose a better problem. I don't know what this one was supposed to be. Oh, I see. Okay, let me see if, that did not work for some reason. So what I wanted to show you guys, that's not showing up on the screen. Let's see. Nope. It's not working. Maybe it's Is there one after? No, it's not there. Okay. So what I wanted to show you guys that's not showing up on the screen is where this fits in the leadership framework. And this sits in the area of, thank you. Thank you. It's going to have great help in the background who's like solving problems, right, as quickly as I can identify them. Thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate it. So what I wanted you to see is that this fits in the area of self-mastery. And that way, what that means is knowing yourself, understanding those blind spots and those triggers. Again, this is the leadership framework I use, distinguishing your self-confidence and when you lose it, right? What causes you to lose self-confidence? Your leadership and conflict defaults. Some of us have a very repeated default way, right, of approaching what there is to approach, of handling problems. Then there's role mastery. And this is where most of us want to focus because we think it's easier. But let me tell you briefly, role mastery. I know this sounds not very sexy, but just stay with me. This is about knowing your role, but not just the role as it's written on your job description or what's on the values pillars in the break room, but what's actually important to the organization, that when you demonstrate those competencies, get you the promotions, make you top of mind, and actually make your effort pay off, right? Because the idea of working and not seeing the results or the benefits of your hard work is tough. So enacted priorities are actually a process that, you know, my leaders go through to distinguish what's actually most important in their environments. An influence plan, because I think everybody needs one, is that plan you create to identify who needs to catch you winning and doing what they need to catch you winning at. Success levers and leading indicators are ways that we focus. We take the intention and what we're trying to create and bring it back into how does that inform our year, our quarter, our month, our week, and our day. Because what I find is that people think strategic planning is something you do once a day, and then maybe if you remember, you go back to it later. No, strategic planning is something that informs how you manage your week, your day, and your mind, you know, all of it. And then finally, goal mastery. This is where you really get clear on your leadership goal, where you create that strategic plan I mentioned earlier that's actually informed by you being expansive or clear on what you want, as opposed to being informed by a reaction to, I'll show them, or, you know, when I'm up there, I'm going to do this, that, or the other, right? Because that is not the kind of goal that will persist when things get tough. And if you've ever heard me speak before, you know, you hear me say things go according to plan about 10% of the time. So what are you going to do the other 90% of the time? Like, in all seriousness, if you can only be effective when things are going according to plan, what are you going to do the rest of the time? That's a lot of stuff that you need to be able to be with and manage. So I'm going to put this up here, but I do want you guys to drop your questions in the chat. That was a lot of stuff. That was a lot that we went through. But I hope at a minimum, you know, as you go back and you see these questions, right, and you distinguish that there's so much more relevance and importance and impact and intention that you could be focusing on, that you take all that brilliance that's wrapped up in the crappy hand you were dealt potentially with the bad boss and turn it inward in a way of having it inform who you want to be as a leader, how you want to be as a leader, and how you address challenges. That is how you make the bad boss irrelevant. So I'm going to take your questions, and I want you to know, if this really resonates with you, you need to schedule a consultation with me like yesterday, because I cleared a whole bunch of spaces and I know that they won't be there for very long, but I want to invite you to really take me up on the consultation if you think this is something that'll make a difference for you. I know it'll make a difference just because of the results I see with the leaders in my program. It is awe-inspiring what happens when you have self-mastery, role mastery, and goal mastery working in your favor. Let's see, can I change the title? How should I change the title? Let's see. You guys can give me ideas, but I'm glad that you're seeing how this applies in so many different ways. I want to hear, what is your key takeaway? What is your key takeaway from this conversation? And you guys, I can't believe it. We're already at the top of the hour, but I want you to take this quick assessment. Take a screenshot if you have to. I'm going to go ahead and make this larger so that you can take a screenshot and answer these questions for yourself, right? Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best. Rate yourself 1 to 10, 10 being best. Go ahead and go through. There are 12 questions. So, take your time. I'm going to read them out loud. Number 1, my career and leadership decisions and actions are intentional and strategic. Okay? My career and leadership decisions and actions are intentional and strategic. Number 2, I don't react to other people's bad attitudes. Number 3, I have self-confidence no matter who's in the room or what's going on or what's going wrong. Number 4, excuse me. I know exactly, I know exactly what's important to my organization and how I fit into that. My good work is noticed and acknowledged. I don't take it personally when my team, partner, client doesn't do what they're supposed to do. Okay, that was 1 through 6. Grab a screenshot if you didn't already. I'm taking it down right now. Going to the next 6. I have a clear method for course correcting when things don't go according to plan. That's number 7. I have a clear method for course correcting when things don't go according to plan. Number 8, I know exactly where to focus my time to excel in my current role or to get my next promotion. I know exactly where to focus. Number 9, I know what skills to demonstrate and to whom in order to grow my influence. Ooh, that influence plan I talked about briefly. You guys will notice these are all things that you control, right? These are all competencies that you control. Number 10, I'm clear about my roadblocks and triggers so they don't sabotage me. I saw some of you all saying, yeah, had I known this, I wouldn't have quit a job because my boss sucked, or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing and using my loose language, so pardon me if I offended anybody, but you get the idea. You don't want to get hijacked by your reaction to somebody else's nonsense. And we actually teach you how to do that. Each of these, everything you see on both of these slides, all of these self-assessment questions, we actually help you get better scores across the board. I have a process for identifying and tackling my own blind spots. That's number 11. And then number 12, I have a written strategic plan for my career that informs my monthly, weekly, and daily actions. How are you guys doing? So for those of you still on, I know we're a little bit over, so thanks if you were able to stay on. For those of you still on, how are you doing? How did you do? Go ahead and count up how many you gave yourself, like let's even be generous and say like a 7 or better. How many did you give yourself a 7 or better on? Go ahead and let me know. How many did you give yourself a 7 or better on? Hold on, let me put this down here. Is that working? There we go. And let me go back to your comments and see if they're rolling in. But I want you to get curious about how different your career, your experience, your peace of mind, your blood pressure, your weekends, your personal time would be if you scored above a 7 on all of these. If you didn't get a screenshot, I'm going to go back one more time. Okay, so no excuses. Grab the screenshot. And if you're scheduling consultation, bring your results with you because we'll be able to talk about that. But it's so important that you pay attention to what you control. It is so important. You need to pay attention to what you control, because otherwise you're spinning out of control, angsting, stressing, and getting all worked up over the things you don't control. Right? The intentional leadership program that I run is entirely about focusing on what you control, because the rest, it's just nonsense. It's clickbait. Oh my God, that's so good. I'm going to have to write something about that. The rest is clickbait, right? What you control is like thoughtful content that you want to engage with, and the rest is clickbait. You guys, that's brilliant. I love when I like amuse and impress myself. Do you guys ever catch yourselves doing something silly like that? Okay. And yes, take control of your circumstance. Or better yet, just food for thought, take control of your response to your circumstance, right? Because we can't necessarily control the circumstance, but we can sure as heck, control our response to the circumstance. What else? Come on, you guys, don't be shy now. How many were you able to score better than a 7? 7 or better. 7 or better. Violeta, I'm so glad you came. And Malu. And let me see, I'm going back to your comments because I know I didn't see all of the comments. And yeah, I saw this. Had you been the intentional leader, deciding and defining what's going to inform how you move forward, how you show up, and how you respond to the clickbait, you're saying you would not have left a great company because of a disengaged boss. Does that sound familiar, you guys? Does that sound familiar? So let me see. I thought I actually had a banner here that was specific to the intentional leadership program, but that's okay. Even if I don't, you can go to bridgewellpro.com/group for those who want to read about it themselves. You're not ready to have a conversation. You can go there and read about the program. But yes, always be working on the things you control. Always be working on the things you control. You guys with me? You do not control the bad boss. You do not control the weather. You do not control the traffic. You do not control the neighbor's barking dog. You do control your response to the bad boss. You do control what time you leave for unruly traffic in whatever city you're in. You do control whether you put earplugs in before going to bed because of the neighbor's barking dog. You guys seeing how this applies in all the big ways and all the little ways? Okay, you guys. Again, last one. Let me do this. And so you can take that. Yes, thank you, Cecilia. I almost forgot to bring back up the other ones so you guys can grab your screenshot. Grab your screenshot. Take your self-assessment. Distinguish at least one action. Not just idea, because we have plenty of ideas, right, in this session, but one action that you're going to take that puts you back in the driver's seat as opposed to being along for the ride for whatever the difficult boss or client or neighbor or colleague or board or whatever the case is for wherever it is that they're going. Okay? Don't just stay on the bus long after you were supposed to get off. Okay, awesome. So the consultation, bridgewellpro.com/consult. bridgewellpro.com/consult. See if I can put that. Yen, can you put that in the comments, please? I think it's linkable if she puts it in the comments, but I'm never quite sure. Yes, take control of your response. Absolutely. Take control of your response. What else is there to control, you guys? What else is there? Stop trying. We're not here to try to control other people or change other people who don't want to change. We're here to make sure that they're showing up in a way that's disempowered and unintentional, doesn't impact what we're willing to do and able to do, the impact we're willing to have, the legacy we're wanting to create, the results we want to put out there, the way we want to develop our teams, the way we want to show up as leaders. That's what we want. I want you to be an intentional leader who focuses on what you control and works intentionally at improving all of those aspects that actually make being an effective leader easier versus harder. So that is what we want for you. Okay, folks, I have loved being here with you. I know this was a slightly different conversation, but I hope that you found it incredibly helpful. I hope that you are scheduling a consultation with me. Again, you can read all about my programs. My next one is starting very soon. So for those of you who are ready to go like now, definitely get on my schedule. The next program kicks off the last weekend in April, and that we're meeting on, I think it's Wednesday. I might say this wrong, Yen. I think it's Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Yes. That sounds right. 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. So go ahead, get yourself on the consult schedule. Let me know what questions you have. This is recorded. I don't know where you're watching it. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can rewatch it there. You can rewatch it on LinkedIn, but it should be on my page. The other thing I want to do is I actually want to give you a link that I think might be helpful just based on some of the conversation we have. It is a how to handle criticism with poise and grace. Sometimes we just need to know how to get through the moment, right? Without losing ourselves or running screaming from the building. So, thank you. Thank you for dropping it in there, Yen. Again, I'm not certain whether that is clickable, but if you go to my website under resources, you'll find that as one of the items. I strongly encourage you to watch that. It's only 30 minutes. It's really good. So grab your notebook. You'll want to take notes, and it'll actually change and inform the way that you engage with the more prickly folks in your environment. So that last link there is for, how to handle criticism with poise and confidence. Okay, folks. Thank you so much. I have loved being with all of you today. I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's been worthwhile. I hope you're actually ready to apply it. And if I don't see you in the consult, I look forward to seeing you next month. Okay, go out there and lead.